Hey everyone, welcome to Cyber Talks, where we discuss all things cyber. We'll share real stories, great insights, and practical tips from our own experiences and expertise. I'm Danielle. I work at in the Strategy and Business Operations Department. Joining me today, two cybersecurity experts, Shani and Michal. Please introduce yourselves.
My name is Shani. I work for 2 years here at CyberSecurity. My responsibility here is developing the cloud security methodology. Before, I used to serve in the Israeli military in the intelligence course as a cyber defender.
Hi everyone, my name is Michal Goldstein. I'm the Director of Security Architecture and Research at Palo Alto Networks. I've been with the company for the past 5.5 years working on Cortex XOR and XIM. I've joined Palo Alto following the Demisto acquisition, a startup where we developed a SOAR platform that integrates with the security and IT tools and automates with what we called playbooks.
So, you both have really a comprehensive record. I prepared a couple of questions and I think we can dive in. We often speak with CISOs at CyberSecurity, and CISOs who implemented multiple security solutions in their organizations, at times more than they actually need. We all know that it requires a lot of resources. So basically, these CISOs have like this false sense of security, or they're going in the right directions? I would like to know from your perspective, what is the right approach here?
From my experience, sometimes I see organizations which their CISOs invested so much money on security solutions, for example, an amazing EDR, an amazing NDR, amazing SIEM SOC team, but sometimes they abandon some interesting other things, for example, the policies. I can give like a very simple example, which is very common. Sometimes I face during an assessment, for example, an amazing EDR product, but I discovered that the password policy in the organization is very weak. And as a result, I'm able to perform an easy password spray attack and compromise strong users, even though the organization is using an amazing tools. So I would say that like using an amazing tools is very important, and it will help the organization to defend themselves. But I would say that it's very important to notice and to not forget like the implementation of the policies, etc.
So security solutions is only part of the solution.
Yeah,
they have to implement and enforce all the policies in the organization.
Yeah, and of course I would say that only in the case where they're implementing the security solutions in a good way. Sometimes they're not implementing the solutions as well, and then it's another problem.
I definitely agree with what you said, Shani, and maybe before I kind of address this, I want to give a bit more context, as I think the numbers changed over the years, but overall we see that organizations, as you said, implement a lot of tools. Just to give a few numbers, again, numbers change over the years, but overall the vast majority of organizations actually have over 25 tools in their environment, with, again, changing numbers, but around 10% of them having over 100. Now, if 100 is a big number, I can say that I've worked with organizations that have over 50, and even that's a lot, right? But it's not just about numbers. I think that there's even the phenomenon of doubling up. You gave some examples of implementing an EDR or a sandbox. Sometimes customers have not just one tool, they have multiple tools in the same category. And that causes a different type of problem. But I think that the fact that they have a lot of tools actually has much impact on the fact that they have a lot of noise, right? Just the amount of time that you need to spend on those tools that you invest in, the money, right? From a time perspective, you invest in the maintenance and the training and the knowledge sharing between your staff, and the fact that you generate alerts from those systems. And everyone knows that alert fatigue is real. Speaking from the blue team perspective here, the amount of alerts that SOC gets is already a lot, right? And with every tool that you deploy, that means that they're going to get more alerts. So I'd actually address your question with some more perhaps practical tips as what to do when you deploy a new tool. And I'd say that, first of all, and Shani kind of addressed this, you need to choose wisely, right? When you're assessing a tool, make sure that you're testing it and that you really understand what the tool would give you, right? What are the benefits and what attacks are you protecting against? Now, after you've chosen the tool, make sure that you invest time in properly configuring it, properly deploying it. Shani talked about some misconfigurations, right? Misconfigurations can be a big problem. And instead of kind of securing your organization, you're actually creating more loopholes that attackers can use. So definitely put in the time to configure the tool. And then lastly, I talked about the alert fatigue. So make sure that your team understands the alerts that they're getting from that tool, and also they know how to handle them, right? So it's not just about sending those alerts to the SOC, and maybe an analyst would get to them, maybe not, right? Make sure that you have a really good either playbook or procedure to addressing those alerts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I'm taking the bottom line from what you said, first of all, too many tools might cause noise. Let's try to avoid this alert fatigue by doing the right configuration and implementing the processes and policies step by step with the right personas in the organization.
From my experience, that I usually see that organizations which are using high amounts of security solutions, they sometimes feel very secure, and they're quite, I would say, naive, because they feel like the security solutions protect them in 100%. And I would say that it's important for organizations to get help from, third parties or security assessments in order to detect the blind spots, which the security solutions do not detect.
So you took it one step further. We were talking about solutions and then policies, and now you say audit. Make sure you have a third-party organizations who audit your processes and policies and product, of course.
Yeah, I think that it also can save you time and money, and it's very important for an organization to make these prioritization.
Okay, thank you both for this for your answers. Both of you have experience with Purple Team activities involving efforts of both attacking teams and defense teams. I would like to hear more about your roles in these activities, and especially about your perspective.
First of all, the main key in a Purple Team assessment is the cooperation between the red team and the blue team. It's very important to configure the test cases before we even start the assessment. It means that we're going to discuss exactly about the use cases that we're going to execute, and I think the main difference between Purple Team to, for example, a red team is that in a red team assessment, sometimes the blue team is even not aware of the assessment. We're testing their capabilities.
And it's not the case for Purple Team at all. I mean, it's always coordinated, and expectations were set.
Yeah, so exactly. During the Purple Team, I would say that it requires a high maturity level of an organization because the red team and the blue team needs to cooperate together and configure the use cases before the assessment is even starting. And I think that this is the main key before the assessment even starts.
I definitely agree with you, Shani. Collaboration is definitely key. And I'd say that really embrace your red team and work together. Really important here is the fact that look at your red team as your QA, right? This is the best QA that you'd get. They're a QA team from two perspectives. First, testing your security tools and the deployment of those tools, as well as testing your team and their readiness. This is better to experience and test in a closed environment within the Purple Team process instead of having to deal with an actual attacker. So work together and make sure that you answer all the relevant and important questions throughout this exercise. So things like, have we detected the attacks that the red team is executing? Remember that they're using the same tactics and techniques that an attacker can. So for everything that they're doing, you should be able to detect it and hopefully prevent, right? So if you have not prevented it, what should you do in order to prevent the real attack in the future, right? And if you have, how long did it take for your team to identify it and to actually get to the alert? How long did it take them to remediate it? How long did it take to respond, right? So all these stages should be timed and also kind of assessed and answered throughout the exercise. And also, what actual means are you taking, right? So one of the steps is definitely to take the lessons learned, right, and go back to your tools and make the right changes. So again, going back to the prevention question, right? If you haven't prevented it or haven't detected it, what do you need to do in order to detect it next time? Now, this brings me to the point where this is continuous effort, right? And I think this is key. Purple Team is not one thing you do and then forget about it, right? Check the box, say, I've done it. So do it time and time again. And also make sure to repeat the same test that you've done in the past, right? So the fact that even you did this exercise 6 months ago, still go through the same test because someone could have changed something, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about misconfigurations in your first question, Danielle. And if someone just accidentally changed something, that can have a huge impact. So really go back to your tests and also do this quite often.
Thank you. On March 8th, we'll highlight the International Women's Day. Now, we had a short discussion, the three of us earlier, regarding how to raise this topic without using too many buzzwords and cliches. It was an interesting discussion. I would like to hear your perspective here. Do you think that in 2023, this discussion in tech, in the cybersecurity industry is still needed about the Women's Day or women in specific?
So actually I waited for this question because this topic is very close to my heart. I can say that from my experience in my short life, I served in the military, as I said before, and I served with, I think, 8 guys. Like, I was the only female in my team. And after 1 year, I became the team leader of my team. And I didn't face any obstacle. And I think that was because I didn't give it place. Like, I told myself when I started my career in the army, I told myself that, like, being a woman is not an excuse anymore in 2023. And I feel that if, like, I'm not giving it the place, so it won't be an issue. In Psy, I never felt some, I don't know, discrimination or something like this. I feel very equal to my team. Sometimes when I'm presenting the findings of my assessments, to CISOs or the board team, sometimes in the call there are 8 men in my father's age, so it's quite funny, and they are always amazed to see me. So I think that this shock is not relevant anymore. Because I know many women which are working in this field, and of course I hope that more women will join, and I believe that we work exactly like men. So this is my opinion. I would say not a common one, but I hope that it will be a common opinion in the future.
I just wonder if there is a gender bias that prevents women to choose to go to the tech or cybersecurity industry beforehand. I mean, as you mentioned, that once you entered this field, you didn't feel any gender bias. And in the end of the day, many women, young women, go to, I'll speak for myself, I went to social work studies, other than going to a more technical field. So I wonder if there is a social impact here, or if there is a gender bias that influences our decision in the end of the day.
It's like a common issue, but I think that, like, from my perspective, I remember that since I was a child, my main interest was computers, and also I learned in high school physics and computer science, and yes, I was one of few girls in the class, but I think that I didn't feel this social effect on me, but of course I understand what you're talking about, like, I understand.
Michal, I really want to hear your note on that.
So I'd say that maybe to your first question, the discussion on Women's Day is, I believe, still important, still relevant in 2023 as well. I think that this, there are a lot of professional women in cybersecurity, but not enough, right? We're still a minority compared to our male colleagues, but I think that's fine. Right, we just need to keep working on it, and I see the day as more of a celebration and also a day for us to just remember this topic and have those discussions and really talk about it. I'd say that when I was younger, I tried to kind of avoid this as well in a way where I try to make it not relevant, right? So I'd work as hard as I could, right? I did my best. I was the most professional that I could be. And then, in my opinion, I would start with my professional kind of knowledge and I'd show that. And then that would testify that it doesn't matter that I'm a girl, it doesn't matter that I'm a woman, it doesn't matter that I'm young, right? So it was more of presenting myself from that perspective and showing up to a discussion and kind of sitting with all those male colleagues who can be the age of my parents and really showcasing my knowledge and not who I was, right? But I think that as kind of I have more experience and I'm more senior now, and I work with more kind of younger generation, as well as when kind of mentoring and talking to younger girls who are now in school and choosing their professional career, I really think it is important, right? And so really I see this more as kind of an empowerment day, a day to kind of remember that we need to continue investing, and what I'm happy is now kind of more of, again, a norm, and also there are really a lot of action items that people have taken and initiatives such as programs, right? So when I was one of 3 girls in my high school studying computer science, we went to a startup, we saw professional women, we went to a corporation, heard from women working there and what it's like, and now there are so many programs for girls going into computer science, girls going into cybersecurity. So really driving them, to your question on bias, driving them to understand that there shouldn't be any bias, and they can again go into more technical fields and become really professional. And again, now they have a lot of examples and women to look up to. And I think that's what we should strive for, and this is what we need to discuss on this special day.
Thank you. And let's keep this discussion alive. I mean, the worst thing here is to be indifferent to this day as a whole, but we can have pros and cons. Let's keep talking about it. Before we finish up, is there any tip you would like to share with our younger audience, or any person in the audience that would like to develop their career in cybersecurity industry? Something that helped you? It can be tools, courses, any recommendation you think of?
So I'd say that in cybersecurity in general, there's always an opportunity to learn. So my tip would be, don't be shy, and if you don't know something, don't be hesitant to ask your colleagues and ask for questions. And this is kind of the best way to learn.
You mentioned a very important point, keeping updated, because what was relevant 2 months ago is not relevant right now, and I think that especially in our industry, in the cybersecurity industry, it's very important to be updated in the day-to-day vulnerabilities, new technologies. It's very important, especially when you're performing red team assessments, and of course when you need to protect these vulnerabilities.
Thank you, Shani. Thank you, Michal, for joining me today. That was another episode of Cyber Talks from a different perspective this time. See you next time.